This is Gotham TV Podcast, episode 60, where we're talking about Gotham, season 2, episode 9, A Bitter Pill to Swallow.
Hey, this is Drew Powell. I play Butch Gilzine on Gotham, and you are listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
Welcome back, Gothamites, to episode 60 of Gotham TV Podcast, where we're talking about season 2, episode 9, A Bitter Pill to Swallow. I almost forgot the name of the episode there. Always happens just as I'm doing the intro. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hi, I'm one of your other hosts, John, and this was a really, really good episode.
It certainly was.
It was not a bitter pill at all.
Yeah, it really was a good episode. With loads going on, really enjoyable. One of those classic episodes that I think will stand out in the whole series of Gotham.
Just really solid. I mean, it's sad that old Harvey Bullock wasn't in this episode.
No
he was
Bullockisms this week.
No. But I loved it. It certainly addressed a little gripe of mine from last week, I have to say, head on. There's still a bit of Jim grandstanding and being sort of morally upstanding towards the end, but I actually can forgive it now because it really was laid bare. Someone finally, in fact, two people finally called him out on it.
That's right.
Really liked that. It was about time that he got a good old slap across the wrists or the back of his legs or a little bit of discipline.
Absolutely. Needs a little bit. Welcome back, Gothamites. It's really good to be back again with this episode of Gotham TV Podcast. If you want to find the podcast, just make sure you subscribe to us over at iTunes. You can subscribe through our website by going to gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes. You can also pick us up on any good podcast catcher. We're having a discussion about this week about which was the best podcast catcher. Two of the ones that we usually recommend are Beyond Pod and Podcast Addict, both really good podcast catchers that can pick up all of our show notes and pick up our images. But we are on pretty much every podcast catcher out there. All you need to do is search for Gotham TV Podcast, and you will find us, and we will pop in your ears every week once you subscribe to the podcast. So hopefully you're joining us over there. Another quick shout out for our group over on Facebook, where we talk about Gotham at the UK pace. If you just search for Gotham TV Podcast over there, we have a page where we generally just release our episode and maybe bits of news, and we also have a group where we have some discussion about the episodes as they're released in the UK with no spoilers for the US episodes. So come join the group. It's just starting out, but we'd love to have you join.
Absolutely. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter. Just search at Gotham TV Podcast. And of course, we live tweet Gotham, which airs on Channel 5 in the UK and Ireland every Monday at 10 p.m. And we live tweet the episode there. So come on, join us and tweet away with us and other members of the cast, as well as Channel 5.
Absolutely. It's great fun doing that, actually. I'm really enjoying it, being able to just connect with people. Some of the Americans who've seen the episodes before are able to point out some stuff we may have missed, and really good fun to be on there and enjoy it along with a group of people. So, come to us over on Twitter as well. With that, I think we're ready to kick into this week's episode. We always mention it because we do have new listeners every time we release an episode, which is great, and thanks so much for listening to our podcast. The way we cover our podcast is we take 5 points from the episode that have stood out to us. We try and find a Batman 66 moment, a Bullockism, which unfortunately there were none this week, potentially some other references to Batman materials as we go, and hopefully between the two of us we'll cover off everything we want to talk about in the episodes, and then we'll go into our feedback at the end of the episode, some discussion that we've picked up from our listeners as well. So to begin with, this episode 9 of season 2 of Gotham, A Bitter Pill to Swallow, was directed by Louis Shaw Milito, first time director for Gotham. Comes from a couple of the TV shows. He's directed a bunch of episodes of CSI, and also directed an episode of Lucifer, one of the other DC properties on TV. Really interesting that he's doing some crossover in the DC universe. Yeah. And this episode was written by Megan Moyston Brown. You might remember Megan Moyston Brown is the script editor, the senior script editor for season 1 of Gotham and for most of season 2, so knows a lot about the characters and their interactions. You can see that in this episode. There's definitely a lot of good interaction.
Absolutely. You can really see the interplay between characters here and some really good exchanges. I mean, there's the usual high quality exchanges between Alfred and Bruce, But again, and it's certainly something I'm going to come to, I love seeing the interaction between Captain Barnes and Jim as well, because I mean, it's something that's kind of fallen to the background a bit. Whereas when Captain Barnes was first introduced, it was very much, you're on board, you're part of my team. And it's obviously slightly started to kind of break it to some extent. There's a distance developed between them. So it was good that they reconnected here, I thought.
Definitely, yeah. With that, I think we need to know what they gave us for this episode. What came in Gotham Season 2, Episode 9, John? Give us your synopsis.
Sure. Tabitha is all out for revenge following the arrest of her brother, Theo Galavan. She wants Jim's head on a plate, and she will stop at nothing to get it, as she goes to a killer agency and puts out a contract for Jim Gordon's assassination. Elsewhere, Bruce is still beside himself and is desperate to know the truth about his parents' killers from Silver St. Cloud, but is stopped by his loyal guardian, Alfred, and his ever-watchful cat, Selina. In another part of town, Penguin and Ed have another encounter as Nygma nurses Oswald back to health and gets the Penguin to move on from the death of his mother. With a few jabs of the needle, a lot of rest, a bit of henchman killing, and some sage advice, Edward Nygma begins the process of rehabilitation for Oswald Cobblepot. Meanwhile, back at Theo Galavan's Gotham apartment, the attempts on Jim's life come thick and fast as Captain Barnes and Gordon investigate the residence for evidence. The continuous waves of killers are fended off, but Barnes is severely injured in the process. As reinforcements arrive, so does the fearless contract killer named Eduardo Flamingo, who is ruthless and skilled in the art of death, and who also likes to dine out on his prey. On other waves arrive a different breed of killers, as the Order of St. Dumas enters Gotham City to execute the wishes of Theo Galavan.
Dun, dun, dun.
Absolutely. Where was Christian Slater and Sean Connery from the...
Not get that reference there. From In the Name of the Rose.
Yes, that kind of reminded me a bit of that.
Excellent. You don't make it easy for yourself when you do your synopsis, John. I love your synopses. I must say they're really, really good, but you don't make it easy for yourself. Looking for the evidence in the residence is a difficult thing to say, isn't it?
It's my new tune.
Looking for the evidence in the residence. I like it. Yeah, really good episode this week. Loads of stuff going on. Again, tons of characters in there. That's pretty much covered off most of the characters. It's a shame that Harvey wasn't in there. That would have been a complete set of all of the main characters appearing in this week's episode. So, but really, really good. Can I go first on my first point?
Absolutely. Fire away.
Because it addressed my issue from last week, or answered my question from last week, I suppose.
Is it the same issue that I had?
No. My question that I was left wondering last week was, how is Barbara Keane? How does she only have concussion and a couple of broken bones? Answered pretty quickly at the start of this episode as Jim goes to visit her in hospital. She's not just got concussion; she is in a coma and may never recover from it, says the doctor. She may come out, may not. But I like that they've kept her alive at the moment and stored her back away in Arkham, which is where she escaped from in episode 1 of this
the medical wing. Crazy Babs in the medical wing at Arkham.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just one short final wake-up from escape.
Yeah. It's definitely one of the favorite things I love about podcasting when you're doing each individual episode of a series rather than doing one podcast for 22 episodes. We're picking out stuff each week, and I love that they answer the questions that we have, because effectively all these episodes are written and produced well before they're aired. So they're not answering our questions. They've come up with the answers for things that they pose for us. So we did ask the right questions, I think, which is what I like about this kind of stuff when we go,
absolutely,
why is Barbara doing that? Oh, okay, well, that's why. And that's what happened to her. So that's good.
Or whether it brings into question Leslie Tompkins' medical skills, though, is another matter.
Possibly. She is used to dealing with dead bodies more often than live ones. So maybe she missed a little moment there for poor Barbara. And one of the other good things that it brings in is obviously this continuing fracture between Leslie Tompkins and Jim. You know, he's just got to go and see the woman that tried to kill him and Leslie, and and also tried to steal him away from Leslie many times, tried to kiss him the previous week in the interrogation room, did kiss him, excuse me, in front of Leslie in the interrogation room. Another little fracture to their relationship here. All's not happy in the world of Gotham for these two characters.
Not at all. And I mean, this is starting to cause fractures in their relationship. Yeah. I wonder how long Leslie would be able to deal with this if it continues. And it'll be interesting to see whether it continues now that Babs is certified Arkham, and now whether, Jim, this whole episode is about this bitter pill to swallow, and whether it is Jim realizing ultimately that he has to swallow this bitter pill that is truth about his personality and how he does things, so it'll be interesting because there is still hope for this couple. Absolutely. Leslie and Jim. Absolutely.
Yeah. Despite what Barbara thinks, as opposed to thinking that there's hope in their relationship. Yeah. John, do you want to take us on to your first point?
Absolutely. And I might as well just address the elephant in the room, so to speak. I did have an issue with Jim's continued moralizing and how, on the one hand, he's to be this upstanding citizen. He's moralizing to other people about doing bad things. And yet, he kills people, in a very secretive way outside of the law. And that doesn't seem to prey on his conscience. And this episode addressed it in spades. What with Leslie Tompkins bringing it up in front of him, and also Captain Barnes. And I loved it for that. I mean, I really did like, Leslie saying, most people fight their dark sides. You find ways to give into it. And it is. It's like, you're using this as an excuse. And that's what I always felt. It just felt a convenient excuse. And she's addressed it. And that for me was excellent, to really kind of put the pressure on Jim. I mean, they're challenging Jim here, and I think that's what his character really, really needed. I mean, not trying to be too sort of serious about it, but even in a heightened world, even in a world that maybe has kooky elements to it and is fun, it still has to hold some form of rationale and reason behind it. And I thought this was just starting to move away from that. It made less and less sense every time I heard Jim speak. And here he is being challenged by the woman he loves about him continually giving in to doing stuff that is beyond the law, that in the next sentence he's trying to uphold.
Yeah.
And what I loved then about his exchange with Captain Barnes.
Before you go on to Barnes, there is an interesting moment in this exchange with Leslie where he comes back to her after a pretty bad day and says, I think I've done something pretty bad today. And she goes, oh, what a surprise, really good sarcastic kind of moments from Leslie where she's looking at him going, yes, I know. And you do this all the time. And I'm the one that's constantly worried about it. Now you know how I feel being in a relationship with you and your attitude. And it is hugely calling out the issue that you had last week, about how Jim has been carrying through this season, just kind of, existing on the fact that, yes, he's got a badge, so he can do whatever he wants to. That's a very different Jim than we saw in the season last year. And it's nice to see the other characters kind of calling that out around him. Yeah.
This episode is bookended by the death of Officer Parks, because in effect, Jim has resisted that dark urge. You hear him scream out as he's got the gun in Eduardo's mouth. He could quite easily have just shot him after what he had just done, to the officers that had come to reinforce Barnes and him at Gallivan's apartment. But he doesn't. And it has consequences as well. And I like that idea. It's that no matter which route you go down, there are bad consequences. And it just illustrates that point. There's bad consequences for Jim for killing at the orders of Penguin and asking Penguin to essentially remove a publicly appointed official in a commissioner.
Yep.
And there's consequences for doing the right thing. And sometimes they can also be tragic, as is the case with Officer Parks. But one of the things I really liked then was the exchange with Captain Barnes and Jim. And firstly, it's just Captain Barnes sort of calling out the blatant bad behavior, the ill discipline of Jim Gordon, that, you're doing this in front of me.
Where he's hanging the guy
You
out
know,
the
where
window.
it's hanging the guy out. You know, this is something that I don't tolerate. I've told you that I don't tolerate. We have to operate within the law. And look, you're doing this continually. And Jim again plays that same card that he always has done. And for me, it was getting tired in the last episode, which was, but this is Gotham. We have to do things, you know, the bad way. Otherwise we don't get anything done. And he calls that out as well.
Yeah.
Jim is saying we need to push the boundaries. You know, this is Gotham. And Barnes, you know, just calls it out again by telling him his story about, you know, when he was in the army and so on. And it's basically saying, look, you know, I'm hearing you, but that's still no excuse as to why you are essentially blatantly disobedient and disloyal to me in front of my face, going against my expressed orders and really going against my authority.
Yeah.
And it's just that whole call out. Because again, like with Leslie's, it challenges Jim. And again, it all leads to this death of Officer Parks, which is saying, you know, even when you do the right thing, there are consequences. And as I said before, they can sometimes be tragic. So I'm really pleased that the writers addressed what was happening with Jim Gordon. And I'm really glad that it was both Leslie and Captain Barnes, his private and his professional pillars of his life, that really sort of challenged him to think about what he's doing. And ultimately I find now that it makes everything that he's done previously, I can go, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I think as well, it pulls Jim Gordon's character more into the character which I perceive as being canon.
Right.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
One that has to do challenging stuff, but it's not easy.
Right.
But it's always the right thing to do.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think this scene in itself is fantastic between Barnes and Jim. They haven't really had a huge amount of really good drama scenes together throughout the season so far since Barnes joined. You know, there's been, you know, a couple of things of, you know, you're on my side now, I'm now your leader, a lot from Barnes. It's great to have a moment between the two of them where they share the fact that they're both army vets and they've both been to war and they've both had these experiences where Jim can learn from Barnes, you know, and learn how to take on board his kind of aggression and anger and turn it into something powerful and useful for the GCPD, whereas he was going down a path that he was probably going to end off in prison himself, you know, eventually.
Absolutely.
Or in Arkham, you know, he may have just, it may have snapped within his brain at some point and he would be sent off to Arkham, you know, or go on some kind of personal vendetta and get killed, you know. It looks like Barnes is able to pull that back a little bit, and Leslie to the same extent, to be able to kind of pull that back and call him out on it. It's great to see that after our discussion last week. You know, it's great to kind of see that that's being addressed in the show as well. So hopefully we'll see a stronger, more powerful Jim Gordon with the backup of other people in his life now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Derek, what's your next point?
I'm going to call out one of my favorite guest stars so far, I think. We have Missy from Doctor Who. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, Michelle Gomez, who's well known as one of the characters in Doctor Who, if you've watched that show. She's generally a comedian, generally plays comedy roles in here, and you can tell she's fighting the urge to use her Scottish accent in this episode. She's usually got quite a deep Scottish accent because she's from Glasgow. I really do like the actress herself. It's great to see her in the show, and I love the part that she's playing. So it's so she's playing the lady, as how she's referred to in IMDb. I think she's the leader of the assassin group that Tabitha goes and hires to take out Jim Gordon. Really good to see her in here. She's a good character actress. I really do like that kind of crazy style that she brings to it, to the part. And I like the whole concept and the whole idea of this team of assassins that are being sent out to take down Jim Gordon. So hopefully we're going to see her back in a future episode. But great to have Missy from Doctor Who on there. I know, obviously, watching it in the UK with a lot of UK viewers, there's tons of them that are also Doctor Who fans. You could tell the reaction from so many of the people that were tweeting along with us were just reacting to the fact that, wow, we've got Missy in this universe now. That's really cool. You know, so it's the female master. Sorry, in case you aren't a Doctor Who fan.
So that's it. All my notes referred to her as Missy.
Yeah.
And it was really good to see. She just brings a vibrancy and just a real urgency to the delivery of her dialogue, it was just really good. I loved the moment where she's with Tabitha in the bar, and you have, she says, well, personal contracts cost extra.
Yeah.
And Tabitha's kind of like, is it business? Is it personal? And she goes, no, it's business. And she shows the picture, and it's like a cop, and she goes, are you sure it's not personal? And she goes, no. And she goes, well, that's good then, because cops cost extra. Yeah. Like, really, really good line. Loved it. One of the interesting things as well that I spotted in the bar just before Tabitha goes through the secret doorway, it looked like that behind the bar there was it almost looked like a Tim Burton-esque kind of statue, like from Nightmare Before Christmas, or something like that. It was behind the bar, and I thought, oh, there's maybe a Tim Burton moment, Tim Burton Batman moment, a little reference. Probably wasn't. It just reminded me, in any case, of those stop motion animations that, in particular, Nightmare Before Christmas that Tim Burton did.
Right.
And which is fab, by the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do love the whole concept of Tabitha going into the bar and ordering a specific drink at 11 o'clock in the morning, and the bartender kind of going to her, it's a bit early, she's ordering the Highsmith Royale. The bartender's kind of going, no chance. She goes in, and behind there, underneath this bar, has this cool club with all the assassins hanging out. I love that idea. It's really cool. And one of my favorite songs of all time playing in the background, The Stranglers' Peaches. Walking down the beaches, looking at the peaches. One of my favorite songs. Absolutely love it. And great kind of intro to this character and this world. This is a new world of assassins, and I'm sure we should be seeing some of those again in future episodes, but really, really cool.
And certainly Missy.
Definitely.
That would be great.
And one quick bit of feedback that came in about this particular part of the episode, I'm going to pull it in really early. It came in from Media Shock UK. Just wanted to pull it in because it's a nice little connection to the DC Comics universe. So Media Shock UK says, although Michelle Gomez is cast as the Lady on IMDb, we aren't exactly sure if she is Lady Shiva or not. In DC Comics, there is a character called Lady Shiva who is an assassin and heads up a group of assassins. So this actually could be a DC Comics character that they brought into the show,
which would be cool.
Yeah,
absolutely. So hopefully she'll make a return, and hopefully we'll find out a bit more about her.
Yeah, I have actually seen that Michelle Gomez is looking forward to people putting together a petition to get her back on the show. So if you enjoyed her, get on Twitter, send her a tweet, and join the petition to get her back on the show, because we loved her, really enjoyed having her on the show. John, do you want to give us your next point?
Jim in a lift. Twice, in fact. Firstly, the first attacker sent from Missy to kill him, the piano wire guy.
Yeah.
I just loved it. This to me was Batman 66 moment all over. Just the lift look hugely over elaborate for a lift. It looked stylish. It kind of looked like a bespoke lift. And just the fight that took place, there were some really cool moves from Jim Gordon. The one where he kind of goes over the assassin's head and using the lift to kind of run around and sort of escape the piano wire. Really cool. But then just it's stopping at a floor, the door's opening, and there's this like punch out going on, and then the doors close and off it goes. Like, fantastic.
Absolutely.
You couldn't want for a better kind of slapstick violent moment. It was brilliant. Loved it.
Definitely. I love that they've got the little music playing in the background as it stops on the floor. It really reminded me of the 1978 film, The Blues Brothers. Very famous film, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
But that moment when they've been running, being chased by tons of people, they get into the lift and the music's playing as they go up 10 or 15 floors in a lift. Just, this really unusual juxtaposition between all the action that's going on and this weird kind of relaxing music that's playing in the background, brilliant moment, really well put together. I really thought it was fantastically, just really good fun for this episode, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other moment of Jim in the lift is where he's going down to meet Eduardo Flamingo. We find out that Eduardo does like to nibble on his victims. He is a bit of a cannibal. And I just thought, with Jim going down in a lift, it just looked like a dumb waiter. It was like he was being served up to Eduardo as the final course, the pièce de résistance. And I just couldn't stop laughing as it went down. And I just tweeted that, is Jim in a dumbwaiter, or is he actually in an elevator? Like, what is he in? Because he's going down to meet the cannibal Eduardo Flamingo. Again, that was just my own mind sort of changing things up to what I saw. But I thought that was really good as
Absolutely, yeah, no, very, very good point. Good touch again on this show. Really good episode with these kind of touches. Yeah.
It was superb. It balanced the serious and the kooky really well, and the fun really well. It's something that I thought season 1 did well, actually. I really enjoyed that balance that they had. And sometimes maybe it's just gotten a bit too kooky.
Right.
Given the level of violence, it can be uber violent, and it's been uber violent, uber kooky, but not with anything maybe particularly meaty. And I thought this really gave meaty, dialogue and storyline with Jim, Barbara, Leslie, and Captain Barnes, and that whole thing regarding Jim's character. But at the same time, it gave us some real fun moments, which didn't seem out of place. It felt right for Gotham. So this was excellent to me. Really good balance. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Derek, what's your next point?
Speaking of Batman 66 moments, and I am going to bring in another little piece of feedback that we got. Richard Blaze got in contact with us on Twitter and said, every scene with Ed and Penguin has to be your Batman 66 talking point. I'll totally agree. Most of this episode actually seems to have been taken up with the proper meeting of Ed and Oswald. They have met once before. It didn't go so well, with Oswald telling Ed to get out of his personal space, effectively. This time we have, I'm going to just talk about the Batman 66 elements, because I think you probably have a point or two about Ed and Oswald as well. It just felt like those great moments when there was a team up between these two characters of Riddler and Penguin back in the Batman 66 series. The idea of Ed taking care of Oswald while he's knocked out in bed, waking him up, playing songs that his mother sang to him as a child and singing them at the top of their voice. The two of them having a couple of drinks around the dinner table towards the end as they're singing the song, as Ed is tapping along on his mug. Lots of fun little moments between these two.
Absolutely.
And obviously the great moment of Ed delivering a Leonard to Oswald. His this possible way to take out some frustration on Galavan, even though Galavan's been arrested, and Ed is going to hopefully learn how to be a better serial killer. That's a plot that would be taken from one of the Batman 66 episodes. It's like, I'm not as good a killer as you are. Teach me how to do it, and here's a body that you can practice on while I'm here. Great fun. Really enjoyed these two together, but there were also some great other moments within it. Some really good, serious, dramatic moments between the two. One final call out for me about it, though, is where Ed tells Oswald, I've become a killer now. I think it's a great moment there, and then goes, I've killed 3 people. And the reaction from Oswald, where it's like, 3? Oh, I did that on my way over here almost. It's kind of, it's a really good moment.
You've taken one of my points. I have the 3 kills. I love the absolute elation in Ed Nygma, the pride he takes in finally saying this out loud. He says, it's great to hear that out loud, that I'm a killer, that I've killed people. And that coupled then immediately to just Oswald's face, the roll of the eyes, the slight smirk, the kind of thinking, like, it's like he wants to burst out laughing, like, you're not a killer, you've just dabbled.
Exactly.
And I just thought, excellent.
It's like most children in Gotham have killed that many people. It's kind of that look that he's given him,
and Ed even calls Oswald out as a notorious killer in Gotham. Has multiple, like, head counts in that sense, as a murderer and a crime boss. And I just loved that interaction between these two characters. And that was, I think moving on to my point with regards to Ed Nygma and Oswald, exactly the same. When he brought out Leonard, I thought my notes say a gift for stabbing. It's kind of like a piñata. You just expect them to start whacking at him. But, at the same time, in amongst all this fun that they're having, there is also this notion that Nygma wants Oswald to guide him through this transformation, and he talks about it being, I cannot be a caterpillar forever. He has to move on. I love just the pitter patter of the dialogue and the interaction between the two, where you see Nygma's sort of hello sleepyhead. It's just so familiar sounding. It's really, really good. And then, you really then see, actually, despite Nygma wanting Oswald to help him, he helps Oswald to the point where, unfortunately, Leonard is probably, dead and has bought it completely.
Absolutely. There is just one great moment that I couldn't stop laughing at. I wish we were able to use samples from the TV show in our episodes, because it's at the moment when they take him back out of the closet where Ed stashed him, and they're talking about where Oswald says, "My mom says there's no party without entertainment," and Mr. Leonard, who is trussed up and has a sock in his mouth, effectively, just goes. It's a real Scooby. It's a Scooby-Doo moment, effectively, where he's going, I know what's going to happen to me here. Brilliant and good fun. But yeah, tons of really good serious stuff going on as well. Obviously, with Oswald's admission that he's lost his mom, the only person that he cared about and only person that he wanted to keep alive in Gotham, and now she's gone. And Ed turning that on its head and going, well, yeah, but she's gone. That means you've lost everything. You have nothing to lose anymore. And that makes you even more dangerous. Yeah. Because you can come from a place of freedom. You can do whatever you want now because they can't hold anything over you.
And even the notion that Oswald is going to leave Gotham. Mm-hmm. It really good. I mean, that whole scene between the Riddler and Penguin was just fantastic, where Ed Nygma talks about love being a weakness for men like him and Oswald, whereas other men draw strength. For them, it's their Achilles heel, ultimately. Yeah. For Oswald, it was his mum that was that weakness, and which Galavan leaped upon to control him to do exactly what he wanted to do. And as you say, now that his mum has been killed, he is free and unencumbered to do what he pursues. And that was really, really good. I mean, as he says, the man I see in front of me is a free man. You have nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. He's also gone, he's lost Butch, his right-hand man. He's lost Gabe. They've moved on from him. He's lost his kingdom, as he said, which was Gotham. He's lost his mom. He's now got nothing to lose. And what's really interesting about it is this is generally the reason given in comic books why vigilantes or why superheroes put on their masks to protect themselves, so that if anybody ever finds out about who they are, they may go after their loved ones. This has been flipped on its head for this show, saying the villains have the same exact problem. If they have people that they love in their life, other villains will take them out, and other people will go after the people they love. So I like that they've addressed it in this way on the show.
Absolutely. And there's a few spectacle references in this episode as well. I mean, creepily, Nygma still keeps Christine Kringle's glasses by his bedside. And when he looks at them, he feels nothing, but he keeps them anyway. We have that. And then, of course, we do have that fantastic line from Jim Gordon as he's about to kill his first assassin with the piano wire, where he goes, "Do you know what I like about those glasses? They look like bullseyes," as he shoots him through. Classic line. Brilliant. Loved it.
Really cool. Really cool.
So a few little spectacle references. As a specky four-eyed person myself, top notch.
Interesting.
Derek, what's your next point?
My next point is Bruce Silver and Alfred and the cat. Really loved this scene again. Davin Mazouz and Sean Peart, we would give a lot of credit to when we're watching the show, because the scenes they have together tend to be just the two of them, and they are masterful together. It's amazing that a kid of the age of Davin Mazouz is able to pull off some of the scenes that he does. There's one scene I didn't like, for the first time, I think, this season between the two of them. But the initial scene where Bruce has invited Silver St. Cloud over to his house to try and get the information out of her about who killed his parents. It's great because it again answers what would Bruce do next after losing out on that information from Gallivan, well, the next thing you do is go for the next possible person that may know this information, you know. I love how Alfred calls him out on it. I love how he stops and sends Silver home with his usual British self. It's effectively, in light of recent events, I think you should leave. Smart girl, off you pop. This is Alfred's line to her. But after Silver's gone, he turns to Bruce and says, you don't have it in you yet to be able to deal with a woman like that. She's effectively too strong and too smart for you the way you are right now. You need more training in the ways of dealing with people like that to get that kind of information that you want out of her. She's never going to give it up. She's only going to twist you around her finger and get and take more from you than you're ever going to get from her. But he puts
it in a way that is really, really good. Like he says, getting information out of that girl requires a level of deception that you don't currently have. Mm-hmm. Like that's I like that line. It's the idea that you haven't got the ability to pretend lie, you know, to be really deceptive in how you are dealing with people. I mean, manipulating people, if you will, in the same way that she is able to do.
Absolutely.
And that was really good. I also loved the fact that he does say, if you force me to be your jailer, then that is who I will be.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important line for Alfred as well, because obviously it is, you know, Guardian and, you know, multi-billionaire, and inherited, multi-billionaire, or it's Butler and his master, whatever it might be. And I think this is the really good way of addressing that, which is, I'm your guardian. I can be your friend. I can be your guardian, or I can be someone that you really don't want me to be, but I will be it if you force me to go down that route. So that was really a great little point for their relationship as well, I think.
Absolutely. One touch I did like at the end of the conversation with Silver just before she leaves, you see a little bit of the Playboy Bruce there as the good-looking girl leaves her hotel room key with him. I like that little touch. I thought that's a nice little gag on Playboy Bruce Wayne. He's a little young right now, but I like the little joke in there. The scene I didn't like between Alfred and Bruce, it's probably the only scene I didn't like in the episode, is where they tried to go for a bit of comedy, with Bruce coming down the stairs wearing his dressing gown over his clothes, and saying to Alfred that he was going to go back to bed and everything's fine. He totally understood. And Alfred was sending off the taxi that Bruce had ordered to take him into Gotham. Yeah. I just thought that scene played like something out of a not very good sitcom. It just didn't really work for me. That scene between the two of them. They don't need that. They have such good chemistry and such good moments between them in the episode. They probably didn't even need that moment. I liked the moment much better when Bruce tries to escape through the window of the drawing room, and as he opens the curtains, Kat standing outside, Selena Kyle, waiting for him to leave, and then comes in and talks him out of going anywhere near Silver St. Cloud again. I like that they bring Selena back in. She is his guardian devil, I suppose you'd call her. She is still watching over him. Because she knows how bad Silver is for him. She's 100% knows this because Silver has told her how bad she is. You know, I like that they brought her back in here. It's a really good idea.
Absolutely. Definitely. Yeah.
So yeah, another great scene this week between Alfred and Bruce. John, do you want to take us on to your next point?
The Dumas. The Order of St. Dumas, a land at the docks in Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really like this scene, mainly because of the context in which it was given. That you had prior to that Gallivan and Tabitha visiting her brother in prison. I'm not entirely sure how that works, given that the GCPD are looking for her. So I don't know whether that's just one of those little slips, to be honest. I understood that they were looking for her as well.
Yeah, possibly.
She's not at the apartment. I mean, my point being is I'm not entirely sure how that would work, or maybe I've just missed something from the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the fact is that I loved the scene, however, because I love that Gallivan threatens his sister for the first time.
Yeah.
That what do you mean you've taken a contract out on Jim Gordon? If you do anything that threatens this plan, essentially I will slit your throat.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely threatening. And more to the point, he talks as though he expects to be where he is at this moment in time.
Yeah,
It's all part of a plan. And then, it cuts to the docks with the Brotherhood there walking along the docks in Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
And being welcomed by the head monk. Really, really good. So it's all part of the plan. Galavan is right where he wants to be, and we have a poor dock worker being brutally stabbed left, right, and centre by this crowd. It was really, really good, and I'm really looking forward to the next episode because I'm thinking, does Galavan get broken out of prison by the Brotherhood now that they're here? Do they enact and execute his plan irrespective? He's behind bars, so it never looks as though any of this really was to do with him. Obviously, Jim and Barnes have found a cassock in a hidden compartment in the wall following the shootout in the apartment. So there is something to connect him potentially to a monk order if they become public and start doing stuff. But nonetheless, this is I just love the fact that Galavan is almost sitting pretty in prison, and that was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I loved the prison talk between Galavan and Tabitha.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely loved it. Really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say I like the fact that Jim did actually find the cassock in Galavan's apartment. He was so adamant he was going to stay there until he found something else on Galavan that he could use, not just the testimony of the former mayor of Gotham. He's also able to find the cassock and connect him in some way. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm really intrigued by the Dumas. I'm really intrigued by the Order of the Dumas coming into this city here. Really cool. Really interested to see what they're going to do with this whole group of guys that back up Galavan. That's really interesting to see. It's going to be fun couple of episodes going forward.
Yeah, definitely. But Derek, what's your final point?
Yeah, my final point is about Eduardo Flamingo. I just wanted to go back to him a little bit just because he is a character from the comic books created by Grant Morrison, Scottish comic book writer, created for Batman number 666, which I think is interesting, created for that particular issue. He's almost exactly the same as he is in the comic books. He's a killer who eats faces, but a much more flamboyant character in the comic book. I like that they toned it down to just a pink feather in his hair rather than him having the full-on pink costume, pink motorbike with the flamingo symbol on the side of it. What is it about flamingos this season? We're covering
loads of them.
We're covering Agent Carter, where there's also a flamingo has made a central appearance in the show. So quite interesting to see that this major character called the Flamingo has also made it onto Gotham. But he's pretty brutal character. I love that the first scene that you see with him, he's cutting somebody's ear off, and there's a set of legs stretched out of a fire. Seems to really enjoy his work, definitely.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
The psycho killer who does love what he does. He's been thrown out of the order, the assassin's order by Missy.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's cutting off an ear, or he's just taken out a tongue and he's about to, swallow it up. Really good. Again, Officer Parks is chewed upon by him, really brutally violent scene, and she dies from it. I do have to question the police officers who are trying to pull him away. I thought 4 of them would have been able to have done that in time for her to survive.
Yeah.
If Barbara can fall out of a cathedral window or the belfry and survive, I have a feeling Officer Parks could have, given that there were 4 other officers immediately there to rescue her, could really have survived this. It was a shame that she had to die. But in the context of Jim's story, as I said before, I think it really works. And again, it just shows the brutality of Eduardo.
Yeah.
And also he's cocksure. Let's face it, he's got his chains, he's got his flamboyant little flick through his hair, all of that. And I love the fact that Jim beats him down.
Absolutely.
And beats him down properly. And again, Eduardo provides that foil of saying, no, I'm not going to kill you. You are going to be arrested and put behind prison.
Yeah.
So it fuels that side, as we've already discussed. Really good.
Absolutely. But as a non-gun owner and someone that is actually pretty terrified of guns, I have to say the scene of Jim putting the gun inside the mouth of the guy who's just beaten down to the ground is still pretty visceral to me. It's still a scene that is almost as bad as seeing him pull the trigger for me. It's him being that brutal of taking the gun and putting it into the mouth of somebody else. That's a villain thing to do. It's not a hero thing to do, even though he pulled back from it. But I love the scene. I love the idea that Jim is about to pull the trigger on this gun. He's so close to doing it, and that is definitely a really well put together scene until his final reaction, where he does let out the aggression or the stress of that situation in a very loud and possibly quite girly scream, towards the end. Might just be the echo in the archway.
Yeah, I think it's the sensitive side of Jim coming through there. And I love the fact that it was quite manly, actually. And it just, as it gets towards the end of this full-on kind of roar of, I want to do this, but I can't, I've got to hold back, it goes a little high-pitched. But I thought that was quite good. It does show the sensitive side of Jim Gordon.
Absolutely. Jim, Jim?
No, my name's John. And my last point is...
See, this is why we call out our names at the beginning of every episode, because I forget them sometimes. John, what is your last point? Do you have a last point?
I do. It is a bit of a Joker watch, actually.
Yes.
We do see in the opening scene as the camera pans along a wall, we see a bit of graffiti with some eyes and a big ha 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 on the wall. So, the legend of the Joker, of the Smiley Man, the magician, of Jerome lives on.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. As we were told it would when we lost Jerome at the beginning of the season. Really, really good catch there. I really enjoyed seeing that as we went past. It was definitely there and placed there for all of us to pore over. We're hopefully going to see another Joker or another version of the Joker in future and kind of get that story continued throughout Gotham. But
hopefully, and with a red hood.
Yeah, hopefully. I think that's it for our points about this episode. Tons to talk about and tons of stuff going on in this episode.
Loads. Yeah. And really good, really good, really solid episode of Gotham.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would definitely give this 4 chopped off ears out of 5. I mean, it just had an awful lot for me. It certainly addressed for me one of the growing inconsistencies, or should I say flaws maybe, coming into the Jim Gordon character in Gotham, which were addressed here. He is battling demons. He is being called to account by people in his personal life with Leslie and now in his work life with Captain Barnes. I love that it also ended up with a tragic consequence for doing the right thing, because that just makes it harder for Jim to maybe reason this through and rationalize it. But I'm looking forward to seeing that kind of battle that Jim has. I loved Missy being here, the secret underground agency of assassins. I loved the arrival of the Order of Saint Dumas, and just Galavan's kind of preach and prison talk to his sister, where he just seems to be sitting pretty, even though it looks like all is lost. He's there seemingly in the right place at the right time, and I can't wait to see what happens in the next few episodes. And as well, the wave after wave of assassins was just superb. I love
that. Yeah, absolutely loved it. Sometimes doing the show, we've done, obviously 60 episodes of our podcast about, it's now 31 episodes of Gotham itself that we've reviewed. And sometimes it can be difficult. There are episodes that are filler. We've talked about them before. There's always something interesting, which is why we love the show and why we continue to podcast about it. But I love when this stuff all comes together in a really good episode where you watch, scenes between Nygmobblepot, Edward Nygma and Oswald Cobblepot, which are really enjoyable, seeing 2 really good actors playing off each other that don't get the opportunity to do it at other times. You can tell the 2 actors really get on as well because they're able to do a good pitter-patter.
Absolutely.
You can tell with scenes like the Leslie Tompkins and Jim Gordon, or the Captain Barnes and Jim Gordon. You can tell that there was some build up in the show, you know. It's kind of rewarding for a long time viewer, like all of us are, obviously. It's rewarding for you to be able to get those scenes that you don't get in other episodes, which are normally the criminal of the week or that kind of stuff. It's rewarding to get scenes between those characters where they're actually talking to each other about stuff that you want to see them talk about, you know, not just glossing over and moving on to the next crime or the next big moment, you know, actually getting moments to breathe, which is what absolutely you should have in a series that's 22 episodes long. You should have moments to breathe and actually talk about things that you don't get time to do in a movie or don't get time to do in a 10 episode show. So I'm glad they took the time in this episode to actually have some great characters spending time with each other and doing some great things together, and also have a great overarching element to it, which is the assassins trying to kill Jim and the Order of St. Dumas arriving. So
absolutely,
really, really good.
Absolutely. And I mean, as you say, on top of all of that, there is that great series of scenes with Nygma and Cobblepot. Brilliant. Fantastic episode.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic episode. And looking forward to next week's Son of Gotham, episode 10. Yeah, really looking forward to seeing that and seeing who is the Son of Gotham.
But the thing with that, it's time to move on to our feedback.
Yep, first up, some Twitter reactions while we were watching the episode and live tweeting along with it. First reaction was from Media Shock UK, who said, episode 9 just upped the ante. Jim has gone full-blown crazy and the Penguin Riddler amazing.
Absolutely. Sarah Madison says, fab episode, shows Oswald's vulnerability and Nygma clearly admiring him and almost wanting to impress him.
Mm-hmm. Paul Edwards says, one tough day for Gotham, a killer bromance formed. What more can you ask for in a Gotham great episode?
Absolutely. Kezia Halton goes, episode 9 is my favourite so far this season. Ditto. Absolutely agree with that. Really good episode.
And finally, Claire Payne says, an amazing speech by Ed, which has really screwed up Oswald even more. I feel Ed is even more dangerous than Penguin now. It's an interesting point. Yeah.
It is, because I think that Ed Nygma manipulates with his own language, with the riddles, with the misdirect. Oswald, he does it by planting seeds and manipulating people, but getting other people to do his work and only revealing himself when he is absolutely certain or assured of victory. So really, really interesting point there, Claire. Also, some feedback for discussion is that Paul Edwards comes back with, question for the podcast. How do you think the death of the rookie will affect Jim? Considering if he killed the assassin, crossed the so-called line at the end of the episode, she would most definitely be alive. Great to see Missy in Gotham. Also plays the Assassin Club owner brilliantly. Absolutely. Missy, fantastic. Plaudits all around there and absolutely spot on. This will be really interesting to see how Jim copes with doing the right thing but not getting necessarily the right result. He says at the start to Captain Barnes, you know, yes, I did all that stuff that you're sort of giving out to me about, but at the end of the day, we had Gallivan in prison and Mayor James Aubrey was rescued. You know, we need to cross the line occasionally.
Yeah. So
really interesting. I hope it just makes him even more conflicted and that we see Jim play this out with Captain Barnes, with Leslie, and really, really good. So thank you so much, Paul, for that. We also have some feedback from Natalie.
Yes, we do. We've got a couple of interesting points from Natalie. She says, just on the Missy point, which is everybody talking about this particular week, she says, the Whovian in me is still a buzz that they somehow managed to get Michelle Gomez. Her casino operator / hitman employer was a few notches down the scale of evil from Missy, but still deliciously and comically evil all the same. I hope they think to bring her back. Now, if only I can figure out how to get Sean Pertwee's Alfred down in the casino. Really good point. Sean Pertwee obviously is the son of one of the Doctor Who's. It would be great to see him play off Missy in an episode, wouldn't it?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Really good fun.
That would be really good.
And really nice touch. Natalie also says the whole Nygma Penguin sequence is pretty fun. An interesting dynamic developed where nation psychopath Nygma wanted pointers on killing from Penguin, but ended up giving Penguin, who very understandably wanted to get away for a while, a pep talk. For Penguin, it must have felt like he was trapped in a Stephen King book or the film Misery in the early going. Nygma is sweetly caring in his insanity and all the things he did to try to heal Penguin psychologically. This and last week showed that the whole Nygma has emerged the sweet, if awkward nerd with his confident and psychopathic side in a harmonious fashion. What I mean is, he's still a little sweet and awkward and still very nerdy, but he is much more confident now that the psychopathic side has come fully out to play. Makes for an interesting mix. Yeah, a really good point, and definitely noticeable in this episode that we don't ever, I think since episode 7, we haven't actually seen Evil Ed or Good Ed. We've just seen Ed Nygma. There's nobody talking to him anymore. He's just the one character, and that means he's merged the two sides of him. And yeah, you can definitely see both sides of them in the character that he's playing now. Really good props to Corey Michael Smith. He's doing a brilliant job of incorporating those two elements and making
really good acting. And I mean, the two of them are great acting in this episode from Robin Lord Taylor and Corey Michael Smith. And I mean, we've enjoyed their performances right from the get-go.
Yeah.
And it's really good, as you say, to see them on the screen together. Mm-hmm. Bouncing off one another. Fantastic.
Yeah. And finally, Natalie says, it also makes Ed seem partially redeemable as kind of an anti-hero. I could see this Nygma turning into a Dexter type of killer, killing only bad guys. Then there's that version of the Riddler that tried his hand at being a private investigator. Gotham's Nygma certainly has the police experience to go that route once he gets bored of killing. Yeah, great points. I really can see that, can Ed flip it back around and just take out criminals? Is that going to be some of his path to becoming the full-blown Riddler? Will he just take out people that he maybe can't catch or the other detectives can't catch? How are they going to involve them in the GCPD going forward? What do you think?
That would be really good and interesting to see, I think. It would be a nice twist for this Ed Nygma to do that. At least to start off on that route, given Detective Doherty was, that felt
righteous.
Yeah, it felt justified in the circumstance within the show, and within that character. And that kind of vigilante element, I think, would be really interesting.
Yeah.
I can't really... The thing for me that I'm really looking forward to seeing is Ed Nygma ensconced and back in the GCPD, because there has to come that conversation. Where is Christine Kringle? Since that's happened, he's been, awkwardly in the morgue for one moment, which was really nice. So that was a great scene between him and Leslie Tompkins. And I really want to start to see him deal with Harvey Bullock, deal with Jim Gordon, deal with other officers who maybe treat him like crap, maybe, just talk down to him, that now he's got this more confident side. I think that would be really interesting to see. And just to see the pressure build and build and build on him in relation to the missing Christine Kringle will be really good, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I get the feeling that Captain Essen would have noticed much quicker than Captain Barnes will notice the missing Ed and the missing Christian Kringle. It seems like Barnes is very occupied with everything that's going on in this war that he's declared on Oswald. So I'm intrigued to see what happens. Are they still going door to door to catch Oswald at this stage? That was the declaration that was made and given by Mayor Gallivan. So now that Gallivan's arrested, are they actually going to go door to door to try and find Oswald? Interesting stuff coming up. Thanks so much for that feedback, Natalie. I think we're done for this episode of Gotham TV Podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Really good, as always, to have you with us each week for Gotham TV Podcast. We will return next week with Gotham TV Podcast episode 61, about episode 10 of Gotham, the Son of Gotham.
Absolutely. Remember, you can get that as well as this episode or any of our podcasts on season 2 on gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes or any other good podcast catcher. Just search Gotham TV Podcast. Join our group on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Just search Gotham TV Podcast or look for the handle at Gotham TV Podcast.
Absolutely. And if you want to send us in your feedback, as always, send it to feedback@gothamtvpodcast.com. We'll be back with you next week. Thanks for listening.
Now off you pop. Bye.
being a Butch supporter. Butch loves you, baby.
It's not a hero thing to do, even though he pulled back from it. But I loved the scene. I loved the idea that...
Did you like the girly scream?
I love the idea that Jim is about to pull the trigger on this gun. He's so close to doing it. He's so close to doing it, and that is definitely a really well put together scene until his final reaction, where he does let out the aggression or the stress of that situation in a very loud and possibly quite girly scream, towards the end. Might just be the echo in that particular archway.
It's his sensitive side. It's his sensitive side, I think. Maybe. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and again, it just shows the brutality of Eduardo.
This has been a Flickering Myth Podcast Network production. For more information, head over to flickeringmyth.com for more shows like it. Find this show in iTunes by searching for the podcast name, and head over to youtube.com/Flickering Myth to subscribe to the Flickering Myth movie show. We'll see you on the next podcast. Take care. Bye-bye.